guys, Karen Del Maestro here, breast cancer survivor, health coach, and BRCA2 gene carrier. And today on Breast Cancer Conversations, I have the immense pleasure of being joined by my amazing, beautiful, talented, smart daughter. Yes, that's you, Paige Haddy. She's looking over her shoulder.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for being here with me today. And I must just say, we may have a surprise guest appearance by Basil, one of Paige's cats, who enjoys being on camera. So
She's quite the ham, so I do have some competition for the spotlight over here, but we'll see. Fingers crossed.
It's going to be what it's going to be, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Paige and I have been talking about doing this for a little while and just kind of sharing our two sides of the story of both me being diagnosed and our BRCA journey. And I know that Paige wants to dive in and ask some questions here. So I'm actually going to be on the receiving end of the questions, which is going to be a little strange because normally I'm the one asking the questions. Yeah, I think it'll be really cool to start off there. So you want to dive in, Paige? And
yes, let's dive in. I'm driving. Get ready. So I guess
pulling up.
You're right. Keep hands, arms inside the vehicle at all times.
I was thinking that. So just so you guys know, Paige actually worked at Disney for a while. At our college, and so you know, it's just the arms and the legs inside the vehicle. Yeah.
Monorail ride, whatever it may be. So anyway, to dive in, I think where we should start, because it's where this journey kind of started for both of us, and I think it'd be interesting now a few years out to hear your perspective on just some background to your breast cancer journey and where it all kind of began for you and how you went about discovering that you had breast cancer.
Yeah, I guess that's a good place to start, right? So like most of us, I did not suddenly discover a lump or anything like that. I was actually, for a period of time, probably seven months, actually feeling really sick. I had horrendous back pain, where I could barely walk, and I just kept listening to my body and saying, something's wrong. And I was going to see doctor after doctor. I was having injections in my back for the back pain and on medication. And I still had like that super niggly feeling, something's not right. I was checked for autoimmune disease because I previously had Zika virus, and we didn't know if there was something hanging on from that. And a rheumatologist, like I was going to all of these different specialists looking for what was wrong. And then it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, it's time for my routine mammogram. Let me go do that. And that's where it was actually discovered. So they saw something on the mammogram. We did an ultrasound. They did another mammogram. And I was actually super grateful because my tumor was right next to my chest wall. So it was very deep in my breasts. And I feel very grateful that the radiologist was as thorough as she was in really positioning me properly, because they said it very easily could have been missed. Wow. So at that point, you know that they found a lump, which is really scary. And then you're called in to have a biopsy. And I did what was called a stereotactic biopsy, which is, I know it's like one of those weird names, right? So if you can imagine this, you're actually lying flat, face down on this very hard metal table, I guess, with holes for your breasts to go through. And the table goes up. And then there's a group of like 4 women underneath me working on my boobs, which is really bizarre, and it's not something that you get to experience often in life, thankfully. So what they're doing is they're actually doing an ultrasound while they're trying to locate exactly where they're going to be doing the biopsy. So you're not able to move at all. And there are many different types of biopsies. This was the kind that I had. You have your biopsy. They say we're going to call you within 24 to 48 hours. The waiting, the waiting was just horrendous. I think that's one of the worst parts of this whole journey, is the waiting for test results and waiting to hear and not knowing. And thankfully, my husband was with me. Mike was with me when I got the call. And he'd had a family emergency, but couldn't go. Actually got sick. So it was destined to be that he would be there with me, because otherwise he would have been away at this family emergency. And I get a call from the radiologist, and all I hear is her say, "Karen, are you driving right now?" And you kind of know at that point, when you ask that question, what those results are going to be. And I remember just sitting down, kind of knowing that something was coming. And she said, "You know, I'm really sorry, but you have breast cancer." And so, I mean, it just takes a while. It takes a while to sink in. It's emotional. It's like you've suddenly been hit by a truck. Here comes Basil. Oh, Basil's climbing up the castle over there. Hey,
live action.
Yeah, live action on the video today. She's wobbling too. That's so funny.
It hits that thing so often it unscrews. So it's not it's fine. She's good. It's adorable.
Funny.
Always count on Basil for the comic relief. And I actually have, I mean, side note, and I know we'll talk about this more, Basil was actually with me. So you had called us to tell us, and I know like we'll talk more about that. And the aftermath of that call, I was super, super upset, obviously, and processing and crying and all of this. And I'm sitting on the floor, and Basil actually, who never hardly ever gets sick, comes up next to me and just throws up all over the floor next to me. I don't know if I ever even told you that, because I mean, we had other things going on, but like literally there, I'm just like sitting, and she just comes over, sits there, and vomits everywhere. And like, it was just I was like, I mean, just the ability to like, I mean, she's a goofy cat, but like she sensed either the emotional context of the situation, the heaviness or the worry or whatever it was, because she had a very visceral reaction to what was going on. So just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think animals definitely pick up on that, don't they? They pick up on the energy, and it's just like you said, she's not the cat that normally would vomit. So very bizarre. And I'm sure it was very much a reaction to what was going on with you. Yeah.
It was really interesting. So to go back to what you were saying, so Mike was with you when you found out and got the call from your doctor.
Yeah. And then the tough thing then is, okay, you're sitting there and you know that you've just been told that you've got breast cancer. I was told that we think it's early. And that's all the information you get. Like, that's it. Yeah. And I am so incredibly grateful for my doctor, because she also said to me, do not go on the internet. And for any of you out there who have been just diagnosed, or who are going for a biopsy or a mammogram, or just please listen to this. And I know it's hard, and trust me, as a health coach, I research constantly for both myself, my clients. Like, I am always researching. I listened, and I'm grateful that I listened. And this is why, because breast cancer is not linear. There are so many different kinds and so many different treatments, and it really is customized to you, to whether there are genetics involved, whether it's hormone receptive, whether it's triple negative, whatever that diagnosis ends up being, then your treatment plan follows from there. But you don't know that when you're first diagnosed. You don't know where you're at. So to research, you're going to be seeing all of this stuff that is more than likely not relevant and just scaring the living daylights out of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, people ask me, did I think about, am I going to die?
Mm-hmm.
And I did. That's the truth. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I did, because first of all, unfortunately, I lost my sister-in-law to breast cancer. That was inflammatory breast cancer, which is very a more unusual kind of cancer. But yeah, I mean, that thought went through my head, just that, is this it? Am I going to die? And then the fighter comes out, and I'm like, well, what I do know is, first of all, that I'm really good at fighting back, really good at bouncing back after trauma. I know how to take care of myself. I know that I'll do the work to do that. And so then I kind of started to trust in myself and say, you know what, Karen, none of us get to choose when that's going to happen in our lives. You know, none of us get to control that. So all I can control is what's in front of me right now and what my part needs to be in this treatment plan, which is being as healthy as I can, mentally as well as physically. And so that was the promise that I made to myself at that point. It's like, okay, we're going to deal with whatever it is. But, you know, I'm lucky in that I know about clean eating. I know about foods that help the immune system. I know about these things because that's my specialty and that's what I do all day. So, you know, I was lucky with that, but it's that waiting period until you meet with your first doctor, which is a couple of weeks later for me. And then it's starting to come up with the treatment plan and whatever that may be. And it's different for all of us. So, yeah.
Did we have, so I think I know the answer to this, but so did we have a family history or anything that would have made you think that you were more likely to get breast cancer?
No. That's the quick answer to that. But having learned kind of what I do now, I understand that the family history is much more involved than just breast cancer. So my paternal grandmother, so on my dad's side, my grandmother on my dad's side, had breast cancer. I remember her, I didn't know her very well, but I always remember her just having one breast. For as long as I can remember, so from a young age. So I did know from that there was some kind of family history. Health, but you know, I grew up in the UK, as you well know, but health was really not discussed amongst the family. And like we have, you and I, you know, very open, and your brother and stuff, and we discuss our health issues very openly. That was not the case in my family growing up. So whether there was other stuff going on that I didn't know about, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I did come to learn when I met with the genetic specialist, first of all, I met with a breast surgeon, and then I met with the genetic specialist, and they work very closely together. And as I was giving her all the history and all of the information, and she said, you know what, Karen, there isn't that much breast cancer, but there's a lot of other stuff. So, for instance, my mom was diagnosed, as you know, with stomach, liver, lung, and skull cancer just a week before she passed away. My dad had had prostate and bladder cancer. Now, some of those are linked to genes associated with breast cancer. and not just the BRCA gene, which is the breast cancer gene. There are many other genes too. They're just not as well known. They're not as prevalent as the breast cancer gene. So she decided, she said, you know what, there's just a lot. There's a lot of cancer there. So let's test and see. So here I am saying, okay, great, another test. Like, what is this one going to be? And as you know, this one is not a bad one. So it's literally, you literally just have to spit into a tube. You're not allowed to eat or drink before the test, and you spit into a tube, and that's your test for the BRCA gene. So can we share a funny story though about that?
Yeah.
I think it's hysterical, and we'll go into it too. But Paige and also my son Jason, her brother, were both tested for the BRCA gene, and I'll talk about your testing. But like, I was there for 10 to 15 minutes trying to get enough saliva to spit into this tube. I'm on my phone. I'm trying to like. And how quick did your brother do it?
Oh, so we had a competition. So we actually had our genes tested. My mom's doctors very graciously offered to test our genes while she was undergoing her double mastectomy to remove the breast cancer. So and that was actually a very good use of our time. So that gave us something to be doing during that time. So we weren't just sitting there waiting. So my brother was unsure if he was gonna do it up until close until that time. But thankfully he decided to, and we made it into just a competition with who could fill up the spit tube faster. Him being the baseball player that he was, filled the tube in one spit. And I was like, thanks for showing me up, dude. Like, okay. He's like, all right, I'm done. And just hands it back and he's done. Like, okay. So it took me like 5 seconds. I mean, it took me a few times, but I mean, it was like 5 seconds. It wasn't that bad, but he was just showing off. It's like, great.
Funny, I remember.
Very quick and very painless. It was painless, and we made it into a competition, so it was fun.
Yeah. And I think, to just speak to that for a second, I think it's so important that we find humor throughout this journey wherever we can. It is so serious and so really, big black cloud that hangs over you for a while. I think it's so important to find the humor where you can. You have to, I think, to, it just makes it easier to keep going. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was my genetic testing. And then I found out, obviously, that I do carry the BRCA2 gene, and that's what prompted you guys to do it. So, yeah.
But again, and I mean, I know I'll speak more to this, but like the time frame between the actual diagnosis to the genetic testing to the surgery to finding out what stage it was, it's like we talk about it here in a few seconds, but it was like the longest, what could have felt like years. I think it was 2 months or a month and a half or something. Like it was a process.
Yeah, I was diagnosed on July 19th, 2018. And my double mastectomy was on August 31st. Is that 30 days or 31? Sorry, my brain. August. The last day of August.
5 or 6 weeks, yeah, in between.
Oh, it was a while. It was a while. And we actually had a trip planned during that time. We hadn't been away for a while. And we had a trip planned. And we didn't know whether to go or not. And they said to me, go. But here, and what they said was, what we want you to do is to put this on the top shelf and not touch it while you're away. I think I did a good job. Let me just say that. I think I did a good job. But to suddenly, just to like click your fingers and say, just forget that you've got breast cancer.
Yeah.
Not happening. It's there. It sits there. And it stays. Yeah, exactly.
It'll be here when you come back. It's fine.
And that's what they said. And like I said, it's not that I didn't get enjoyment out of the trip. I certainly did. But as you well know, on the last day, and just so that you guys know, we, Mike and I live in Seattle. Paige and her brother are both down in Florida. So, you know, they flew up they both flew up for my first surgery, and then Paige has been up for every surgery other than the ones that we haven't been together for during COVID. And we'll dive into that more as we, you know, go along. So yeah, so it felt like an eternity. And I think that's really important when you don't know, because you don't know until after your surgery, after they actually have the tumor, what stage it is and whether it's hormone receptive and actually finding out the information about the tumor. So it's really, you know, it does feel like an eternity when you're just waiting to see what's actually inside my body. What am I dealing with? And so, yeah, there's fear, there's anxiety for sure. But, you know, I remember just trying to go through the day and just go along with it. And I know, I just want to kind of go backwards here a little bit. Because I know that you and I have talked about it, was me having to call you guys and tell you that I had breast cancer.
Yeah. So what was that like? Because I can't imagine that I know being on the receiving end was a certain kind of experience, but how do you even, so what sort of, I guess, so you get the call from your doctor, and then obviously you personally need time to process, and then you need to loop in us, and we were aware that you were having tests done and expecting results. So I mean, we're all kind of on pins and needles waiting. So
and you know, and I just have to say here that Paige and I had discussed quite some time ago, I think when you'd gone off to college, that if ever I was going through any kind of testing or medical issue, that we would be open with each other about it. That's not every family. And so I just want to say that that is something that we had already discussed. That's our deal. That's what we do. But I'm very aware that a lot of women keep this even to themselves, even not sometimes sharing with their husbands or significant others what they're going through. So, you know, I just want to acknowledge that, and acknowledge that as another layer on this, to have to keep it to yourself and not even be able to share. Yeah. It would be extremely hard. So I think one of the things for me that was really difficult was actually even saying the words, I have breast cancer.
Yeah.
It was like I'd say the words and not believe it yet. Like, am I really saying this? Like, is this like real?
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of bizarre, but that's how it felt. And there are two conversations in my life that I remember very, very vividly as being extremely difficult. One was telling you and your brother that your dad and I were getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. And the other was telling you that I had breast cancer.
Yeah. And
the fact that we were not together, we were opposite ends of the country, and I couldn't even do it in person, and be there to hold you and hug you and cry together and to go through it together, was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And I remember stressing over the fact, do I call you individually or do I call you together? Mm-hmm. And I want your input here, but I remember stressing about it, and I remember a conversation that we all had afterwards, but I just remember thinking, I don't know that I can say this twice.
Yeah.
And deal with the emotion of doing that and breaking that news to you guys. I just felt like I couldn't do it twice. Yeah. So how did it, and so we actually FaceTimed, the three of us FaceTimed.
I think we could not see each other. It was just a group call. It was audio only. Okay. We could not see each other.
My memory for you.
Yeah, no, it was audio only. And I remember that because we didn't play a trick on you, but we had it we were just the way the call went, there was no video. But I think from my side of things on the receiving end, I mean, I was what I would consider to be like on the more naive side or wishful thinking side, like knowing that you were going through these tests and knowing that, you know, there was something suspicious that was found. But in my mind, it was, oh, well, we don't have a family hit. Like, even though like people find lumps all the time and they don't necessarily turn out to be breast cancer or anything past just a suspicious lump. And, you know, people go through this all the time and it does turn out to be nothing. And that's what, you know, the wishful side of me thinks. And I remember just going through this process of like, my mom's been through enough, like lay off the past like 5 years. Like if I turned to like, this was a very like spiritual process for me. And I was just like, whatever higher power there is has no reason to, like, there's no reason to do this. Like, but there's no reason to do, like, at the time, it's like, this just isn't a possibility. Like, it was literally, my mind couldn't even like breach the concept of you having breast cancer. And so you called me first and you said, hang on, let me patch your brother in. And just like on your call, the asking if you're driving was a tell, the three of us don't have group calls. Hardly ever. More so now that we're in a pandemic and quarantined and all, you know.
Oh, well, Zoom now. I mean,
yeah. But before we did it at all. This is 2 years ago. So so that was, I remember just like immediately, I was standing walking in my house, I sat down and I was like, oh boy, I've got maybe 3 seconds before they get back on the line. And I know my brother's going to be like, why is she patching? Like, he's about to go through the same thought process of like, okay, like we're on this call, like we're about to hear this and well, shit, like what do we do? And so I'm sitting there just like, okay, I had like a rush of emotion and I was like, okay, I got to get it out and get it back together for when you get back on the call. And it was, I mean, I remember the like, my brother and I not having spoken before this or knowing what was coming, it seemed like we had some sort of a system where one of us would talk, the other one would mute themselves, because it was just so much to kind of process in the moment. And I know like we all just kind of sat on the line for a while afterwards, because like, how do you even have that call and then go, okay, well, I'll talk to you later. Like, love you, bye. Like, it was just like, it wasn't a call that any of us knew how to like get off of. We were just like, okay, like distance did not do us any favors in that instance. I think thankfully you did have a trip planned and you visited a week or two later. Like it was, thankfully we had that. So we knew that there was like a reunion like coming either way, but it was just not like, that call was just not one that I was meant to, I don't think you can ever prepare for it, but I had wished that I had been a little bit more realistic about what could come, because it was like a curveball out of left field that I just couldn't make sense of at the time.
Right. And I agree. And I have to think, you know, to speak to that shock, I was shocked because as a health coach and somebody that's been in health and wellness for like almost 20 years now, I'm very focused on preventative health and all of these things. And so it's like, is everything I've been doing not working?
Yeah.
But having said that, I do want to say, and we will, Paige and I are going to do a couple of episodes together here, because, you know, obviously you can see there's so many layers to this process. But I hope that you're finding it useful to hear the two sides of it, and that it's somewhat comforting, and just knowing that you're not alone out there dealing with this, I think is so huge. It's such a big thing. So yeah, there was that shock of everything I've done in my life is to be healthy and to not get sick. And here I've been hit with this diagnosis. And what I have since found out from, because now I'm researching like a lot, like all the time, you know, learning more about how trauma affects our breast health, how grief affects our breast health, like all of these things. And I'll go into that more, you know, in another episode. But let's just say there was multiple major trauma before my diagnosis. especially about a year before. And so knowing what I know now, I know that that was the catalyst for giving these tumors, because we all have cancer cells, giving these tumors what they needed to grow. So now I have, a much better understanding of where it came from. And it's not that I did something wrong. It's just that that is what happened. And like you, I do just want to share, there was a quote that I saw, a meme that I saw the day after I was diagnosed. And I remember seeing it on Facebook, and it's stuck with me since. And Paige and I are not necessarily religious per se, but both highly spiritual, I think it's safe to say. And I remember seeing this quote that God will give you more than you can handle, but he will not give you more than he can handle.
I said that to you.
I also saw it as a quote on Facebook. Yeah, the day after my diagnosis.
That's funny. I sent it to you in a meme, I think, too.
Oh, maybe that's where it was. But I remember it was the day after my diagnosis.
Yeah.
With me, so thank you. If I don't remember you sending it, was kind of, well, there's a lot. Obviously, your head's a bit spacey when you get this diagnosis. Like suddenly your life's turned upside down.
Now that you see, like, I mean, those things and little signs and things are everywhere, but it's just like, it's those then begin to pop because it's what resonates with you at that time. That may not have meant something to you a week or a few years before, but at that moment, that was exceptionally relevant. So,
and I literally lifted up my arms and I said, "Here, it's yours."
Yeah.
I did, because I at that point where we were still going through these traumas, there was still stuff that was going on. I couldn't handle anything else. I really felt like I was like hanging on by just my fingertips. And then you get this diagnosis. So, we talked about how I called you.
Mm-hmm.
How would you have preferred it to have gone?
Oh, I don't think there's any good, there's not a good way. I think that you did it the best way that you could, given that we don't live in the same state and that wasn't a possibility to do it in person. I don't think that, I don't think there's another way that it could have gone. And I think the time that I did get, like, in knowing that Jason was joining the call was like, okay, it gave me a few seconds to like, just, catch my brain up to what was happening and like reset a little bit and come up to speed, because it's just but I don't think there's any, like, there's not a good way. But I think the reason why you and I had that conversation back in college about like being open with each other about those sorts of things, it's like, and even though, how easy would it have been for you to go through that and for me not to know, because I don't live there. Like, you could have had a test or a biopsy and just not shared it. But the flip side of that is that then we would have had you would have had a breast cancer diagnosis, and we wouldn't have had any time whatsoever to wrap our minds around. And I remember you even saying, as you were going through those tests, like, do you think I should share X? Or, I don't want you to worry, but this is what's going on. Like, and, I wasn't sure if I should tell you this or whatever. And it's like, it's never going to be a comfortable thing to talk about, but it makes it that much more awkward and hard when you have to then, like, someone who's not expecting something, like, you want to go, like, let's look at, we won't get into this. That's a whole separate conversation, but like, same thing with the divorce. Like, we knew that was coming. Like, you have signs that prepare you mentally for a certain outcome, a certain traumatic event. And same thing was with this, even though my mind was not fully like to that acceptance point yet. It's just like, okay. And then I think what even, like, I guess this is going a little off on another piece, but like, what I didn't understand about breast cancer and even this process, I think we asked you on that call too, like, what stage is it? Or like, how do you know? And I think that was why it was so hard as well to get off the call, because we don't know if it's stage 4. We don't know if it's very, like, if it's very early. We don't know what we're dealing with. And somehow we're supposed to just go on with our lives and say, I just worry and think about this every day, all of us, and just, okay, like we're hanging tight, like we're waiting and we're going to find out and we're hoping for the best, but we just have no idea. And I just don't think I ever understood that about the process. I thought, okay, biopsy will tell you how serious, you'll get a stage, and then you come up with a plan right away, and blah, 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 blah. And it's absolutely nothing like that at all.
Nothing like that. And I think that is one of the hardest things. And just, you corrected yourself about, you changed, I forget exactly what you were saying, but you started with we, and then you went to you. I want this to be really clear. Breast cancer is a family disease. This is not one, or any kind of cancer or serious illness. It's not one person that goes through it. The whole family goes through it, maybe in different ways, but we're all going through it. And I know you and I have spoken about that, but it's, you know, everybody's carrying it together in different ways. So I think that's, you know, just something that is important to acknowledge and to realize. I forget what I was going to say something. See, this happens, guys. I'm sorry. Whether it's the breast cancer or age, it just happens.
I mean, I did want to go back, if you remember that, obviously, shoot it out. But to go back to the genetic testing, because you mentioned that, you know, your doctor had offered that to you and that it was something that, you know, was suggested and recommended. Did you have any hesitations, or did you go back and forth on that decision at all? Or what were did you have any concerns with going through it and what the outcomes might be?
No, is the quick answer for me. And this is different for everybody. And I speak to, you know, people a lot about this when I'm talking about genetic testing, because you have to know yourself. Right, you have to know your personality. You have to know how you're going to handle this news if you choose to go through the testing and if you choose to get the results. I very much, as I've said, live a preventative lifestyle. So my theory is, if I can do something to prevent me getting sick down the road, I am going to do it. And that's something that is, it's just how I live. It's how I've always lived. It's what made me the black sheep in my family. Like, that's just who I am. And so I knew that if I took this test and I got this information, that it would allow me and empower me, honestly, to make decisions about my future and my health. And it did. And I remember saying to Mike, and I'm very fortunate in how my support system has been. You, your brother, my extended family, and of course Mike has been absolutely phenomenal in allowing me to explore my feelings and being supportive of my choices and everything else. And I've been very lucky, because I didn't have a lot of judgment pushed onto me or other people's feelings about what they thought I should be doing. And it's not that we didn't discuss stuff, we did, and I would get everybody's input, but ultimately these were my decisions. And, you know, I appreciate having the respect from everybody as I made them, whatever you want to do. So as soon as I found out that I had the BRCA gene, the BRCA2 gene, I said, double mastectomy, that's it. I'm reducing that risk. I've already had breast cancer. I'm taking that, you know, a massive amount of that risk away. It doesn't take it all away, but it reduces it significantly. And then, as you well know, I went on to have other prophylactic surgeries, including a complete hysterectomy and oophorectomy. And they did find another mass in my uterus when that was removed. It was fairly large. It was not cancer, but it's just, you know, all of that stuff. So how did you feel when you got your because I remember some people don't want to know because they're not going to make different choices. They're not going to live their life differently. They're not going to do prophylactic surgeries. They're not going to do more screenings. And that's okay, right? Everybody gets to make their choice. There's no judgment on my part. And that's what I'm saying. It's something you need to know about yourself. If you can handle getting these results and not living in fear and not living with tremendous anxiety and stressing all the time, oh my gosh, am I going to get it? Am I going to get it? Like, you've got to know yourself. And I remember having that conversation with you prior to you getting tested. And I remember, you know, like apologizing and saying, I am so sorry. And there's guilt, like there's definitely guilt. I know, and I want you to share, but I definitely felt guilt about passing on something like this. But Paige's perspective was very different. So go ahead and share your perspective about finding out about this genetic diagnosis.
I'm trying to think because you're laughing and I feel like there's probably a funny story there and I don't remember what it was. Like, I think even before, I mean, with certainty, I know, I mean, before I got my genetic testing done, I knew for sure that I would go through the same path and get, or for me, it was a preventative double mastectomy, and that I would at least explore that to see if it was a feasible option for me, depending on what my results were. For a lot of different reasons, I mean, all really having to do with you. It was either, okay, I personally really actually was hoping that I carried the gene. In my mind, or the mutation rather, everybody carries the gene, but not the mutation. So I was hoping that I had the mutation for a few reasons. In my mind, it was, you know, I'd rather me have it than my brother have it. I would rather me have it so that your breast cancer journey would make some sense. It would be an underlying reason. It would help me, you know, to essentially save my life, or at least save me from getting breast cancer someday. So in that regard, I was really hopeful that there would be some sort of like underlying logic, or I guess it's not even logical, it's just a reason. And then the flip side of that was that I was mortified to not have the mutation, but to tell you that I had the mutation, because I knew the guilt that you were carrying and that would come with that, and watching me go through surgeries and supporting me through that. And I know you. So I knew that that was going to be really, well, it wasn't something that I wanted to do to you, but it was something that just kind of, yeah.
But you didn't do it to me. But yeah. what I'm laughing at is I remember really clearly a conversation that you and I had where I'm saying, I am so sorry. And I remember being like, just really upset that you had this gene. And I remember you saying to me, Mom, are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, this means, and by the way, Paige is a planner. Like, she likes her life to be planned, and her career is also, you know, a lot of that is planning. So she said, are you kidding me? No, I get to plan this and actually look at my preventative, you know, options and all the rest of it, rather than just sitting here and waiting to hear you've got breast cancer.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know if you realize it, but that was a massive gift to me.
Yeah.
That you had that attitude. And I knew it was authentic. I mean, you know, you and I are very close. We have a very open, authentic relationship. And I knew that that was really true to you and how you really felt. You weren't just saying that to make me feel better. Like, you really felt like that.
Yeah.
And
I would fist pump you if you were here. But I remember that. And I remember too, I was very much so at a loss for, so, you know, I get the call with the results of my, you know, genetic testing, and find out that I carry the BRCA2 mutation as well. And I I really couldn't figure out what to even plan to say to you. Like I knew I had to call. The results had taken longer than we had expected. So we were all kind of on edge, just like, what's taking so long? By the way, they run the results twice, which takes 2 weeks each. So that's why it took 4 weeks. But it just took longer. So we were all on edge. So I knew I had to call you, but I still didn't really know what to say until you said it, and you apologized and you kept apologizing, and I returned your I'm sorry with thank you. And I think we literally went through 3 or 4 rounds of I'm so sorry, thank you. Like I think that was literally just like our thing there for a minute of just like, I'm not taking your sorry, I'm just grateful that I know this. That way, I mean, I was in my late 20s at the time. That changed my life. That saved my kids from potentially having to have a mother that was going through treatment for cancer. It saved me from, I mean, potentially like just so many different things. And it allowed me to really shift my own perspective and focus on my life. You know, have been so career focused and so just driven to do a lot of different things, but I never really focused personally. I just figured, you know, family would happen when I wanted it to. I would meet the right person to have a relationship with when it happened. And this really drove me to find those things and to just really keep pushing for what I wanted. And I don't think I really knew what it was that I wanted until this checked me. Like it was a reality check of sorts. So it was positive in a lot of ways.
So it'd be fair to say that, I mean, I know this for myself, absolutely, but in this journey, whether it's breast cancer, whether it's you know, something like a BRCA2 diagnosis, whatever it is, for me, it has changed my perspective on a lot of things. And that's kind of what you're just speaking to. Like it really changed your perspective on what you were focusing on in your life. And would it be fair to say, especially as something really exciting just happened last week, you want to share what that is?
I'm engaged. Thankfully, I got my nails done yesterday. I was very prepared for this moment. Yes.
We're all super excited about it and really happy, and many congratulations. And I can't wait to wrap my arms around you and be able to celebrate with you. But so do you think that this diagnosis kind of helped you get those things into perspective and really focusing on finding the right person and not, did you feel under the gun for it, or did you just feel like there was a different outlook?
I didn't feel under the gun at all. I think what I felt was just clarity in what I was looking for. You know, like I was dating at the time and I wasn't really like, I was just dating for fun. I wasn't dating for anything serious, and I was just enjoying my time and focusing on, you know, career and travel and all the good things. And I still do love all of that, but it definitely, it got me thinking more about just, I don't know, I never felt, I don't want to say, I never felt old and I never felt rushed by age, but at the time I was 28 and it was, well, oh crap, like, wait a second, like, let me just figure out what I'm even looking for myself and figure out this process. And just I mean, first of all, like having a mom that's gone through breast cancer, it really changes just I mean, time is precious and life is precious enough as it is, and we all feel that. But I mean, so many just like reality checks come with that. And this was just another one of those. But it was more just, I think I felt more passion and more drive to find that right person and fight for myself. And that's what this is. It's really very, I mean, talk about self-evolution. It's really more to do with me than it was to do with finding someone else. It was just a lot of clarity and getting my own kind of mind organized. But I think I lost my train of thought. It happened to you and it came over here. Oh, it was good too. I was on a train.
I'm glad it's not just me that happens too. You were talking about the self-evolution and how this.
No, it was great what I was talking about, but that's not where I was going.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
We were talking about age and how, you know.
Oh, that's what it was, I think. But no, I don't think it was. No. Oh, I got it. So it really served a very great purpose conversationally. So in dating and, offering that up as a conversational piece, at this point I'd had my genetics tested. I had an idea of what my game plan was, but I still had a lot of, things and kind of boxes to check before I could go through this process. But I knew that I needed, I could go through this by myself if that was the case, but I knew if I was looking to date someone through this process that I really needed to find someone who was going to be supportive and someone who wouldn't judge me and just someone who loved me no matter what I was going to choose to do with my body, and whether it be now or 20 years from now. And that really took care of itself because people show their colors. I had some people that were like, oh, wait, will your implants light up? Like, okay, great. You're funny, but maybe not like husband material. Thankfully I never had an occurrence where someone was rude or outwardly judgmental, but it really did just take care of itself. And with Jay, at least when I met Jay, it was a very, very different conversation than any I'd ever had. It was, someone who asked questions. It was someone that wanted to be involved. Even 2 weeks after meeting, it was, do you want me to come to appointments with you? Are you okay? Do you want me to come over and make every sort of thing? And it was just that emotional support that was just okay, that was great and a really key indicator for just the rest of life. So I think it took care of itself in a lot of different ways. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, and that was really good. And super valuable. And I think, you blow my mind sometimes in your thought process. You do. I'm so incredibly proud of you because just the thought process, right? To have that clarity and that insight going in at that age, to think about how is somebody going to support me through this journey? How is somebody going to accept my body, which is a big part of this whole journey. For both you and I, some people have maybe a lumpectomy, some people are having radiation, chemo, and after the process, sometimes their physical appearance does not change. Some does, some doesn't. But for most of us, our appearance has changed in somehow, some way.
Yeah.
And often our identity is tied to our appearance and how we see ourselves front facing in the world and stuff. And I think one of the things that I've really realized is no matter what, and I'm now flat, and I went through breast reconstruction and very complicated.
By the way, I completely forgot. You can't tell in your shirt that you're it's very deceitful. You said that, and I was like, no,
there's nothing there. Trust me.
No.
So isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
No, because it's really sometimes we're in our own heads and we're looking and judging ourselves and other people are maybe not even noticing.
Yeah. So
it's just to acknowledge that it can change how we identify ourselves. And it did for you. You wanted somebody was really important to you, to find somebody that was going to support you no matter how you looked.
Yeah.
Not knowing what your journey was going to be.
Knowing that I was going to be a royal pain in the ass and very, very stressed out for a period of time. It's just knowing that, it's going to be a personally challenging year. It's okay. And even, when you go through that, finding someone that can just bring you joy and understand that piece of things and identify when things are a little like, okay, you're maybe not, you know, fighting with me now over X, but you're, you know, you're feeling something inside that maybe you haven't recognized yet, or you're going through something. So, I mean, lots of factors, but yes.
Yeah, no, it's multi-layered for sure and really important. And I think what I'm thinking is I think we'll wrap up here for today, because I think really want to dive into your BRCA journey, my surgeries, like the next stage of this journey, and we'll do that in another episode. But one of the, I do just want to talk about something that's really important when you do go through this genetic testing, is that genetic counseling is available. And I highly recommend that if that's available to you, that you take advantage of it. Because what are you laughing at?
I think God liked what you said.
The light just changed.
The sun just like beamed through. It was quite effective. Got it.
You got the message there. See,
we like genetic testing. We're big fans.
It's so awesome. I love it. But yeah, I think the importance of the genetic counseling cannot be understated here. You had amazing people counseling you, you know, like there are options here. And this is the thing. There are so many options available to you. It's not cut and dried. It's not that you have to go to a prophylactic surgery. There are many, many options. And that's where these genetic counselors come in, where you really get to talk about your fears. Not everybody is fortunate enough to have a support system the way that you do and the way that I do. Yeah. And so sometimes these decisions are so much harder to make. You know, maybe not feeling secure in their body, not feeling secure in themselves, not feeling secure in a relationship, all of those things, right? I mean, our insecurities play into this massively. And I'll definitely be talking about that more in another episode, because it is a big part. But just to finish up, you know, that if the genetic testing is something that you want to consider, if you're listening and watching this, it's not difficult to do. It's easy. If there is a history of these various cancers in your family, not just breast cancer, but the others that we spoke about, the lung cancer, the liver cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, melanoma, eye cancer. These are all things that are affected by just the BRCA gene mutation, not even all of the others. So if you're not sure and you're curious and you think, you know, I'd like to take these preventative measures, then speak to a genetic counselor. They're going to let you know if you are a good candidate for testing. They're going to let you know if your insurance is going to pay for it or not. But there are also out of insurance options that are not horribly expensive. What was that?
Which is what we did at first, at least. So we did, it was $50 out of pocket, and our insurance wound up reimbursing us, but it was $50 out of pocket. And then that includes the actual physical test kit that can get sent to your home. You don't need a doctor to get it, or to prescribe it rather. And then that also includes your results. And at least through the company that we went through, it includes a 1-hour genetic counseling appointment where your results are analyzed and you talk game plan. And I know for me personally, and I know we'll talk about that more in the next few episodes, but for me personally, that call laid out my entire game plan, and that person changed everything for me and really was really key in setting me up for success with my process. So it's all there, and it doesn't cost a ton to do. So I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you. And I think it's, you know, my whole philosophy on health is that knowledge is power. Knowledge is where we get to then make a decision based on what we now know. If we don't have the information, we can't make a decision. And so if it's something that you are stressing over and stewing over, one of my like Karenisms is that either you let it go or you do something about it. Stressing is one of those factors that increases our risk for breast cancer. So no stressing, do something about it or let it go. So, and I know no stressing, like I wish it was that easy, but it is one of the things that we need to focus on when we're focusing on, you know, reducing risk factors. So, so I can't believe how well behaved Basil has been.
I was actually going to say, I'm very surprised, but she has been a lovely, very well-behaved guest for this episode. So stay tuned for more Basil coming soon.
And no promises that she's going to be as well behaved in coming episodes. So.
No, she got it all out before we got started. There was about 10 minutes where we were talking before where she was quite dramatic, but
definitely over the computer and all kinds of stuff over there. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching today. Like I said, Paige and I are going to continue this conversation. Hopefully it's helpful to just see how we have handled this. Like I said, there's no right, there's no wrong. But I think it's interesting to dive into how it affects the whole family. And obviously, we've both been on these challenging journeys. And so I love you to pieces. I'm super proud of you. I'm so happy that you're here with me. And I look forward to the next episode. And we'll continue the conversation on the next episode. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you have questions on genetic testing or any of the other things that we've spoken about today, feel free to reach out. I'll drop all the information down below, as Paige just said. She's in my head. We've got this thing where so often we're like saying the same thing or thinking the same thing. It really is kind of scary.
But it's helpful. It's a good superpower. I'll take it.
Me too. So, all right then. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.